Welcome back, everyone. I'm having a blast here at the Laughlin UFO Megacon, and I'm here with William Buhlman. Your presentation was fascinating. Um, Tell us, how are you enjoying the conference so far?
Oh, it's been very good, very good.
Good.
Really, this is actually, I attended this conference back in 1999 and in 2000, so this is my third time here.
Oh, very cool. Now, your presentation was about out-of-body experiences and how we can experience our multidimensional selves. Tell us a little bit about how you would define an out-of-body experience.
Well, it's the separation of consciousness or projection of consciousness from the body, a temporary projection of the consciousness from the body. That's essentially it. Most people are unaware of that we have the ability to self-initiate this experience. It's quite a profound experience that can, by learning certain easy to do techniques, everyone has the ability to leave their bodies because we're not our bodies. It's that simple. We're all going to exit our bodies. People forget this sometimes. We're
Right.
just temporarily inhabiting and using a biological body. So it only makes sense, since it isn't us, that we should have the ability, with some practice, to explore beyond the limits of this temporary body.
Yes. And most people also don't realize that just beyond the spectrum of our vision is a whole other universe teeming with life, right?
Absolutely. That's one of the points I really tried to make clear at this conference, is that the universe is teeming with all forms of life. Anything you can imagine more than likely exists. And we have to get over this concept of just labeling everything just because of the form. It's always about consciousness, because consciousness is what is using these various, let's call them bodies or energy bodies, to communicate and function and experience different dimensional spaces. But at its core, it's about consciousness, and not about the obsession today with the outer shape of what it is temporarily.
Now, even for me, I'd love to try an out of body experience, but the first thing that for me that is preventing is the fear aspect. Do you find that that's usually one of the main things that prevents people from
Yes.
doing this?
Yeah. Unfortunately, fear is subconscious fear, especially. Some people, it's conscious fears. In our society and culture, it's sad but true, but we've been inundated from birth with a lot of fear-based concepts. The movie industry is a billion-dollar industry based on fear. These evil entities that are going to grab you, or look at religions. I mean, we've been, from childhood, most people have been taught that there's hell and there's devils and there's demons, and that and it's no wonder that people have all these levels of fear. I mean, it's a double indoctrination, because first the religions teach you it, and then Hollywood double downs on this fear-based concepts, to the point that people are terrified when they even begin to have any kind of experience that takes them beyond the comfortable limits of matter. It's a shame. It's very limiting. I strongly feel that the fear elements that saturate this planet is really slowing the evolution of our species.
And how would you recommend that we get over this fear so that we can begin to explore this? Because, like you said in your presentation, I think the only way to truly know what we are is to begin to explore this aspect.
Absolutely. I mean, how else are you going to know it? It's essential that you get knowledge, and through education, read good people that know what they're talking about. I've written 5 books. Anybody that's read my stuff knows it's based on personal experience and years of research. I don't just put out stuff. I mean, you have to get grounded in reality. If it's fear-based, it's false, I've found, or certainly seriously flawed. I know better. The universe is actually loving. The universe is supportive. That's why we're here. If the universe was really a negative thing, we wouldn't have survived. I mean, it's trying to promote us to evolve at a grander, greater scale. But it's fear and lack of knowledge of self that are the two grand, I think, great obstacles of humanity and the evolution of our current species as it sits.
You also spoke about some of the healing benefits that may come from out of body experiences. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, because all illnesses begin inward. And then they manifest outward. People forget about that. It's always inward, and then it exudes outward into the body. In other words, energetically, it starts as, and let's just say a frequency. As a shaman would say, there's nothing new about this. For 10,000 years, shamans have been healing people by altering their energy fields. They take feathers and they move energy through the body. They remove blockages, for instance. And by the removing of blockages, which are those inner energy blockages, what I'm speaking of, healing can occur. Because science, when you remove a tumor, you're allowing that healing to occur because you've removed that blockage. And through energy work and through, let's just say, self-initiated experiences, you can affect your energy body. Because we are an energetic species. We're not a species of matter. We're not a biological species at all. We are a non-physical, energetic, vibrational species that is using matter for a temporary period of time to learn and grow. So the result, the purpose, the core of what we are is at its very source can heal us. It can adjust the vibrations. We can heal ourselves from the inside out by making adjustments of our own energy field. The same way the shaman have been doing it for over 10,000 years. So yes, but it's only beginning. Science is only beginning to tap in this idea of frequency as being so important to the end result of how we live in our bodies.
And there's really, once you get deep into it, it seems that there's really no limit to the possibilities beyond healing, the powers that we could unlock that are probably been suppressed. I imagine there are factions out there that don't want people to learn this because it could hold such power that they don't need some of these material things that they go through in life that keeps them from exploring this, right?
Well, that's true to an extent, but the real detriment to all of these subjects is that humans do not know what they are. I said this in my talk. People, there's 7.5 billion people on the planet. Most people, the vast majority, have no idea where they were before they were born. They have no idea they're on a 90-year journey in matter. They have no idea where they're going. This idea, I'm going to heaven, that's nebulous. Where are you really going? What dimensional space are you going to? And the big one is, what are you? Here, humans don't know what they are and where they're going, but yet they come to these grand conclusions about life and what reality is. If you don't know what you are, you have to learn that first. And you learn that through experience. You're not going to learn that from a book. You learn that by going inward within yourself, by learning techniques that will allow you. And out-of-body exploration is one way. I mean, there's others. There's yoga. There's deep meditation. There's a lot of different methods available today, thank God, where people can explore an inner journey and become more familiar with their multidimensional self and eventually tap into their true self, which I write about in Higher Self Now. This concept of moving inward through, let's just say, through whatever method you choose. My choice is out-of-body exploration. I find it exciting. I find it just mind-blowing. And it keeps my juices flowing.
Right.
And that's what I love about it. But everybody has their own method. But through affirmations, once you get into a deep altered state, you can say higher self now, or inner self now, or essence now, whatever term is for you important. And then begin to experience these inner aspects of yourself. That's where knowledge is obtained. And through knowledge, you're no longer a pawn. The average human is a pawn of commercialism. They're a pawn of their religion. They're a pawn of all the let's just say, education system, which is, oxymoron in itself, because it doesn't teach anybody about what they really are and where they're going. The point is, humans are all the result of this external stimulus that's very flawed. But once you get your own method, and people have to discover that for themselves. I always tell people, yes, I teach out-of-body exploration, and I have for almost 3 decades now. And for me, it's the path that I've chosen, but it's not for everybody. It's because it takes courage to do this. Some people need a more passive approach, like meditation. You follow me? There's different paths to the same source.
Right.
And I think that's important to get across. But if you like the excitement of out of body, which it is, it's incredibly exciting once this starts to occur. That's for you. But it's a roller coaster. It's a wild ride. And you have to work on yourself. People don't think about or talk about that. If you're in a fear-based, conditioned, program mindset, and you only believe that you're a hunk of flesh, and that the source of consciousness is a 3-pound mass in your head, you're going to have a tough time going inward beyond that, because you have limit. People limit themselves, but they don't accept it. They always look, oh, this guy did it to me. This organization did it to me. It's never the case. We did it to ourselves by buying in to these false beliefs, these fear-based beliefs, these limiting beliefs. So people have to, I feel it's important to wake up to the fact that we are powerful beings that can obtain the answers. And then you can begin to explore effectively.
Yes. Very well said.
Mindset is essential. An effective explorer's mindset. And it's seldom talked about.
Yes.
In other words, it's not techniques. It's about that you have to start with your own mindset and cleanse yourself as much as possible of all the baloney, essentially, all the falsehoods. I said this in my talk last morning, that it's 2 years into my out-of-body experiences. The big mind blower to me was, oh my God, everything I learned from birth was a lie. Just right. About everything. Species. And then you find out, after having multiple out-of-body experiences, that you're beginning to lose your humanoid form. It's like, oh my God, even that was false.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to ask you about. I found that fascinating. As the further you went, you realized that you don't have to have this human form. You don't have to use your legs. You don't have to use your arms.
No.
And you can use the power of your thought to basically do anything, right?
And that's how the universe is set up. Because there is no matter. What do you need to be bipedal for? When in a non-physical environment that's thought responsive, think of it. There's no air, there's no mass, there's no gravity. You don't have ear, you don't have resonance, you don't see with biological eyes. There's no air. We are a non-physical species that is evolving through and using form as a tool of evolution. We are not biological beings at all. And it's just a temporary facade, and it's an important experience at this time of our evolution. But it's not what we are. We travel by thought. We communicate. When you leave your body, you don't speak like we're speaking now. We would be thinking to each other. That's the natural way that we would communicate. It's much more elegant, it's much more effective, and it's clear. And that's the natural way. This is actually a primitive way to communicate. My point is that we have to begin to know the rules of non-physical reality and how to function within it. And that's what I write about in my books, about what are the non-physical dimensions like? How do you function? How do you become effective? And that's so important, because once you leave your body, you're dealing with a whole different realm. The physical physics that we're familiar with, gravity and all this linear time, Those things don't exist. So you have to relearn reality. And it's important, but it's important to learn it from somebody that knows, somebody that's been there.
Right. And you briefly mentioned this, the telepathic communication, but you talked about how it can enhance our natural psychic abilities as well.
Yes, as we move inward within ourselves and we're tapping into the true nature of ourselves and our true potential. And as you do that, you naturally are, people become more telepathic, more what we call psychic, which is just, you're just tapping into your natural abilities. It's nothing strange about it at all. It's natural. What humans have done is block themselves from these natural abilities by their self-identity. One of the things hindering people today is simply their biological obsession with this self-identity, because it limits them. They limit themselves to what they can see with these our eyes that only see a tiny, tiny little fraction of the wave spectrum, as if every scientist knows this. And we limit ourselves by our self-conception. Even people take this for granted, but even the idea, you put limits on yourself by how you perceive yourself. And it sounds like that's not a big deal, but it is, because once you go into an altered state and begin to explore inward, you're taking your mind with you. And that's what's often forgotten. You're taking your entire mindset is going with you. If you have limits, you're taking your limits with you. You're taking your false beliefs with you. Each one of these is an anchor you're throwing down. That's what limits humanity in their inner exploration. And of course, that's why it's so important to have a daily practice, even if it's just 20 minutes a day, because mindset is always at the core of how to become an effective explorer. You have to purge your mind of all the fears that you've been led to believe through your entire lifetime. And that is, it sounds easy, but it's held in our subconscious mind. And when you leave your body, you start to you're connecting with your subconscious. It's, again, seldom talked about. And you have to work on, in and out of body experience, you actually end up working on yourself.
Right.
It's seldom talked about. Some people call it initiations. I talked about the story of the giant sloth with the head of a dog. That was an initiatory experience that I had, that I needed to confront my own fears.
Right.
These are kind of things that happen. It's not all candy, and it takes inner work. And that's what a lot of people, let's just say they've been told that, they're going to be, it's airy fairy floaty stuff. And then they find out, hey, this is not airy fairy at all.
Right.
You have to encounter your own fears. Some people call it the fear barrier. I'm being practical and realistic about it. I know from experience, but that's the opportunity.
Yeah.
You can do more work on yourself and clear more blockages in one out-of-body experience if you just hold it together than you can in a lifetime in a physical body, potentially. Shamans know this. They know it. They've been doing it. They know that fear is the enemy that you must overcome. Now, you can frame it any way you want, but the bottom line is you have to dissolve the fears, the subconscious fears. And as you do, you become freer and freer to begin to explore deeper within yourself towards the source, your own personal essence. And that's where the answers are. The answers are not found in the external world. The answers are found by going inward and then tapping into the essence, because that's the source of all answers. Because reality is not physical. And that's what people forget. Everything around us will be gone. We're not taking a thing with us. The only thing that we own in our entire lifetime of value is our mind, our mindset, the essence of us that we've been learned. We're not taking any objects with us. We're only taking our experiences with us. That's why it's so important to, let's just say, to purge yourself of all of the blocks, limits, fears that we've have accepted, and I'm talking about subconsciously, in our entire life. And that takes effort. But you can do it. That's one of the things I teach in my workshops. You can demand a cleansing. And it's you better be ready for it, but you can say, cleansing now. You can make the demands for improvement. Fear's gone. Fear's burned away, or however you want to do it. Every person has their own verbiage. The intention is all that matters. In other words, you can begin to work on yourself and begin to really open the doors for you to experience your multidimensional self and obtain all the answers for yourself. There's no books needed. It's all about learning the methods of inner exploration.
And I think, if more of us were interested in learning more about ourselves, I think the whole world would be a better place. In closing, before we close out tonight, I found something very interesting that you were talking about, that we chose to come here to experience this human experience, or whatever planet or being we choose to come experience. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, every species has a lesson to be learned, or lessons to be learned. And people forget that. On planet Earth, there are certain specific lessons. It's even in how you're choosing to be a male or a female. There's different lessons as being a male or a female. There's different lessons in every life form. And because we're immortal, at our essence, we are immortal. We're all immortal. It doesn't matter how long it takes to evolve. But the whole goal of life is evolution of consciousness. It's the physical changes that people are fixated on. It's just the outer changes that are occurring because of consciousness. So it's important to realize that we've made many choices. I've said many times before that initially I never believed in reincarnation. I just couldn't buy it initially. But after I started having repetitive experiences in other time zones, other timelines, where I was a German soldier and a sailor during medieval times. I mean, it was again and again, I realized, and I write about this in my books, I realized, oh my God, I was a German soldier during World War II and I died on the Russian front. And I had confirmation of that through 20 different experiences. And during an out-of-body experience, you can actually ask for it. Don't take I would always tell people, don't take my word for it, because what I experience is important. But we have the ability during an out-of-body experience to center yourself, which is important, center your energy field, and then ask, what was my past life? Don't be shy. And what will happen is you'll find yourself. It's almost like you're there, for lack of a better word. And you can repeat that, and then examine it for yourself. It's pretty wild. It's mind-blowing, because you might see things you don't want to see, or experience things you don't want to see. And then you can, during another experience, you can do it again and see, do you feel, does it resonate with you? In other words, this is not only about exploring your multidimensional self, but confirming the information that you receive, which is very important. It's no theories. There's no conclusions that are made by other people. There is no conjecture. This is about developing your own ability to explore and obtain. That's what makes this so exciting and mind-blowing, because you no longer have to be the pawn of someone else's belief system. You no longer have to be the student, let's say. Most people, entire lives are based on other people's conclusions. Look at philosophy. It's all other people's. Religion, other people's ideas of what should be or is. Look at the political systems. It doesn't, governments. It's all about other people dictating to you what to believe. This is the opposite. When I do a workshop, I start my workshop by saying, there are no rules. I'm not going to tell you what to believe. I'm not going to frame it for you. I go out of my way not to frame. And a lot of people will. When you have an experience, you determine what that means to you. Only you can know it. You journal it, and I tell people, leave it alone for a month. Don't jump to conclusions. but you'll have more experiences and more experiences. And the universe has a way to give you almost like a puzzle that unfolds before you, I found, over a period. As long as you continue to explore yourself, and you will obtain the answers. And just ask for whatever you need, whether it be what was my past life, or even more important, higher self now, which I always recommend people. Go as far inward as you can. Go to the source, essence now. See what happens. You have nothing to lose except ignorance.
Right.
And that's what's exciting. There is no one dictating to you what should be seen. And I think it's so important to realize that everybody has unique experiences. There is no this is it. It's a multi-dimensional universe that's expanding currently. Trillions of life forms, countless realities. And it's only you can determine what's real for you.
Very well said. Thank you so much, William. If anyone is interested in finding out more, where can they go to find your work?
Well, the best place is astroinfo.org. That's my website.
Okay.
That's a lot of free information there, including keys to control. I even have a troubleshooting guide and how to handle situations that arise while you're exploring inward. So there's a lot of, let's just say, information that's helpful.
All right. Awesome. Very great information. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah, I intend to.